or like World of Warcraft Arena PvP, which is the worst thing to watch, I think, in the world of esports, where each character has over 50 different abilities with cooldowns that they could use at any given time. And it's like you'll hear the commentators be like, "Oh my God, what a play!" And you're looking at the screen and you're like,
"Where?
What?"
Butterscotch.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 532 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm there teased.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is August 1st, 2020 vibes. Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. And we'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. And we also have a new supporter with a note. So if people give us money, they can just say whatever they want, and we have to read it. It's an
Anchorman situation. Whatever's on that teleprompter.
We got to read the prompter. So this comes from Raisin, who says, your episodes where you cover your production processes and how you work and communicate are always shockingly informative to me. I work at Big Dollar Co., where we are chronically incapable of optimizing how we do and track work, and I'm amazed at the thought you've all invested. Yeah, I mean, that's part of when you have a big ship, it's really hard to
get change to happen. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking the other job specifically,
Yeah. I was thinking the other day about how about governing a country, because the U.S. is 330 million people or something like that, spread out over just a massive space that takes like 7 or 8 hours to fly across. There's like some states where you can drive for 8 hours and still be in the same state, and like that's so much space. And the idea that anybody's actually governing it is fucking hilarious. Actually, it's more like there's like a loose set of norms that we all sort of, but I was thinking about, for example, like what if you said, hey, you know what, we're just going to ban smartphones because like they're just too disruptive, like if you wanted to come out with a law that you said like we've decided as the government that like this is how everybody needs to behave now. People just wouldn't fucking do it. Right? Like you can't just work. But it's like there's no way to like really sort of enforce anything across this big of a space, this many people. And like these giant companies are kind of the same way. Even like Amazon has 80,000? No, probably just 80,000 warehouse workers, I would bet.
That's insane.
Do you know how many do they have?
I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers, but there's
Amazon. They were hitting a point where they're having a hard time finding people to hire who haven't already worked for them.
Well, to be fair, that was a combination of scale and the fact that they treat their employees so poorly that they
their turnover is terrible. Yeah.
But because if you need, because I think it's more than 100,000. If you need 100,000 employees and make their lives so miserable that they turn over every 3 months, then that means you need 400,000 employees, fresh ones, a year.
Yeah,
and like they're just
crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the United States, but not that many people.
Yeah, but I feel like the most important thing in a team environment is alignment, which is like
we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, which is like everybody agrees to go the same direction, and even though you might be like, I'm not sure if this is the direction we should be going, or it's possible there are better directions. If everybody's pulling in different directions at all times, then you don't go anywhere. Right. So it's better to go somewhere than maybe not necessarily the perfect destination. But the more people you have, the more likely it is that people start pulling in other directions. Right. And so it's like if you have an organization of 10,000 people and you're like, OK, we're going to make some big changes to optimize your development process. It's like good fucking luck.
I think that's where the other side of it comes in is I think you need global alignment plus high autonomy.
So that both of those,
as in everybody needs to agree on the direction and then independently undertake the actions necessary to move in that direction.
Yeah, because that's the whole idea of what you're describing, right? The idea that like you can have a top-down organization that basically just like dictates successfully. Because it's not even about like that they're dictating at all. It's dictating successfully, right? So like if you're part of a huge organization, they're like, okay, we have an idea for how we're going to improve efficiency. And it's a bunch of people at the top who don't know what it means to do any specific job.
Yeah, they're just looking at spreadsheets. Yeah. They don't know. They've never
even if you have people in there who do know how to do some of the specific jobs, like any category of kind of collaboration, any specific combination of roles and how they interact, all those things have different requirements and things that make them less good or more good and more functional. And the only place to find that is like where the people are actually doing it. And it's even down to the specific people, right? Because like the fact that our team is like 1,000,000% ADHD havers, you know, means that even if like all else equal, if you took like some other team, same shape, same goals, same alignment, etc., right? It couldn't work the same way. It just absolutely couldn't. And so you need that combination of like the freedom of people having autonomy in a high trust environment where everybody's aligned so that things do end up going in a good direction and in a constantly improving direction.
I think one of the things that's not talked about though in a lot of ways is the reality that in any like team or company structure, especially if there's more teams, if there's teams of teams going on, as work is completed, it creates work for other people, right? So there's a strange pushback that happens in organizations where the teams are less cross-functional and cross-disciplinary, because optimizing one part, and we've talked about this a lot in the podcast with like optimizing art creation, for example, which I think we did a long time ago, made it so that suddenly Seth was being fucking fire hosed with art at a rate that he couldn't actually manage. It actually stressed him out.
Yeah, because we always felt like it would be great if we could make art faster, and like because that's what like people see, you know, like it still has to go somewhere once it's made.
And so I think part of the challenge is that oftentimes when any given team is like trying to optimize something, the reality is that you, by optimizing your own processes in your own team, you are going to increase workload downstream from you. And because oftentimes the team structure, just the corporate structure, doesn't allow for that crosstalk and again alignment across like parts of the pipeline, then you have this thing where it's like teams oftentimes downstream teams who are also overworked themselves don't necessarily want you to, like you within your own little unit, to optimize your stuff, because actually like they need something slightly different, right? And so you end up with this really funky thing where if you can't work, it's almost like if you can't work across the pipeline to some point, right? If you can't establish the bounds of some kind of workflow that your organization's going through, then it's really hard to get like the whole thing to work, because you actually need to check in on people further downstream from where you think the optimization needs to take place and see, are there optimizations that they're going to need to have in place, or are the ways that this works?
Can they handle it, or are they already buried?
Exactly. You know? Otherwise it literally doesn't matter to do it. And that's, I think, the really tricky part, and the upsetting part in so many ways. Is like, you got to find where it's like allowable, right, to these optimizations. I
think this is also why optimization, and we actually talked about this in I can't remember if we talked about the podcast, but it was a topic of our recent quarterly review, that optimization in terms of efficiency there's a lot of reasons that's a bad goal. And what you're describing is one of the key ones, right? Which is that efficiency is not a thing you just get to have, right? Like you can make a thing more efficient, but for that to have mattered, its impact on the whole system has to be also managed. And the bigger scale you have, the harder that gets, right?
Yeah, you want higher total work flow, like from beginning to end of whatever.
Yeah, organizationally. Yes. Yeah. But so the thing that individuals can focus on is like, you still want to have more efficiency, but you have to take into account incoming and outgoing and how that plays with the whole system, right? But so something you can be optimizing for all the time is quality and error rate, right? Because those having higher quality can in theory slow you down, but then you could work on your own efficiency to kind of balance that, right? So you can in a kind of an internal way, if you're focusing on those things, then because there's nothing more costly to a system than having an error sent to you or sending an error downstream, right?
But I think what's so interesting about it is like the reality of quality, like basically managing that aspect even of your own work requires talking to the person who gets your work afterward.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so in so many organizational contexts, there's barriers there, or there's enough antagonism there that like, if you went to talk to someone about like, hey, once we push this thing, what are the problems that we're typically seeing in prod? Or what are we typically causing issues with? And it's like, oftentimes organizations just don't even make space for that, And so I think so much of it is actually just that it doesn't matter. People can dictate all they want from on high, but the reality is it's a lateral teamwork thing that needs to be present, like a lateral communication line.
Instead of move fast and break things, it's maybe move at a reasonable pace and improve things.
Yeah, that's a pretty
it comes down to that high level autonomy, because autonomy isn't about like individuals making individual decisions, right? It's about collections of individuals being collectively able to work together to do things, right? So because if people have decision making capability and are allowed to operate at the level at which they're doing things, then that's true for everybody, which means that you get to have collaboration across those boundaries. But if stuff is dictated top down, then and everybody's just now just has to like use the thing that we were told, or take the approach, or but whatever it is, right? Then the potential mismatch between that and how things actually work makes that everybody's just like struggling to make that make sense within their context, rather than figuring out what makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, thanks for the note. It's always fun to talk about this. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we're sort of obsessed with, as well as just like
once you get
always trying to figure out how to do things better.
You just always think it's such a fun thing to noodle on for some reason, especially in an organizational context where you actually get to do the things you think about, which I think is not true for most people. And I think that's why it's fun for us. Is like, if I'm like, ooh, I think if I do this slightly differently, it'll make it so that Seth has an easier time implementing my stuff. And we're doing this actually. Yeah. So we're doing this the game jam currently and taking a slightly
GMTK, the GameMakers Toolkit Jam.
Yeah. And which actually I'll just use as the lead in for that, because we wanted to take a slightly different approach than how we've been doing dev with Crashlands 2, which is to say, we've talked about our art pipeline quite a bit in terms of the art gets made in Clip Studio. Typically it gets put into Spine, broken apart, animated in a cool way, lots of event hooks and all sorts of more complicated stuff to get us that level of like immersion and combination of like style and personality that we got going on in there. But all those things are really heavy, right? And so the reality is, like, for a jam context, we sat down before the jam and said, okay, how are we going to approach this so that we can get a lot of art stuff and not have it be so heavy, right? And what's been interesting, I think, working through the jam is these moments where Seth will come back to me and be like, okay, so, I got to do like all this, like math to figure out the sizes of things, because the scales of things that you've been exporting are kind of all over the place, which usually they are at the beginning of a project, because you're like, I don't know what the fuck size things need to be. And so Seth's just been handling it, right? Like kind of raw and code. And then as we're chatting about it, as Seth's essentially voicing this, like, hey, this is hard for me because of X. I'm thinking about handling it in Y way. I'm like, let's just talk for 10 minutes and figure out what the fucking scale is. And then I can just send those to you and there's a standard now, right?
Yep.
So this is the same kind of thing where it's like, I could just keep on making
another important note there is working synchronously allows for that. Right. Because like
if we cross-functional aspect, right, of the team, it's not like
it's cross-functional, but also synchronous, right? Because if we're async, then like if like the conversation that we had to figure out how to solve this problem, it was a 10-minute conversation. It wasn't very long, but there's a lot of back and forth.
Yes.
Right. And so if we were to try to sort that out via like a series of Discord messages or emails or something, it would have taken all day to figure that out. And it would have been easier, not more efficient, but easier for me to just deal with the output and just like update the game systems to accommodate it. So I thought that was also like it's an interesting example of how like some things are just like communication is lossy.
Always.
When you're trying to come up with technical requirements or designs of things, trying to do that asynchronously oftentimes results in just people giving up and just making workarounds for jank instead of actually like figuring out a good way to do things, which is why, I mean, I know people hate meetings, right? But it's like being able to just sit and like an actual meeting where where everybody's talking with each other to solve a problem is just invaluable. Like you can't beat it.
Collaborative meetings are the best. Like they're fun too. It's just, I think people confuse meetings with reports. And it's
presentations.
Like, it's just they're not the same. Yeah.
And I think it's even the name. I think the problem is that there are different just categories of the thing, right? And meeting is much more closely aligned with the information broadcast, right?
That's fair.
And not being collaborative. I think if you just literally call it a collaboration, because that's what it actually is, right?
Or workshop. Like workshops feel like good.
A workshop just feels like a lot. There's like a lot of overhead, but like it's just you're just collaborating on stuff actively, right? And that real-time collaboration is, because I think there's the lossy part. That's true. The communication is a huge struggle to make sure that everything is being conveyed. It's very slow, making sure everybody understands what was said, right? All that's true, but it's also the case that as you're trying to understand the shape of a problem, which is what you're doing for all design work, but especially early design work where nothing is known, is you're also trying you don't even know what it is you're trying to communicate yet.
Exactly.
And
you're trying to do stuff. You just run into a problem that you didn't see coming. You're like, oh wait, I need to ask someone about this.
Yeah, and even like before that, like even before you like run into the problem, you still are doing like you're doing the design in your brain for things how you think things are going to work, and that process is extremely fast. Of just like I think as you're like working through the thing in your brain, right? And at that time, you can't sit down and be like, let me describe for you what it is I'm thinking because you don't know what it is yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's the whole idea of what collaborative design is, right? Is that a group of people sit down, all who know the same big picture goal and collectively make a bunch of fucking noise, basically, right? And it's like,
you start finding signals in there. That's all it is.
Exactly.
It's like,
that can be a frustrating
right?
experience, because you're trying to find alignment, you're trying to understand the shape of the problem, and if you're not used to this, then and also it's going to depend on people's neurotypes and stuff too. Ours is ADHD driven, right? So that's got a particular kind of shape to it. But it's very like if you were just like watching those conversations and not as a participant, but just kind of like trying to watch them, right? What you would see would seem to be a huge amount of like redundant. You're like, didn't you just talk about that like 5 minutes? Like you're gonna be hearing that because
you hear like a lot of redundant stuff. You can hear a lot of random stuff, and then you hear a lot of questions that don't seem to be about anything that's actually sort of like the stated purpose. So if you're like, oh, hey, we need to figure out, and in my case, like, what's the size of this asset going to be? And then during that conversation, it's like you back all the way up to questions of like, okay, but I really want to have like 100 different things on the screen at once. And are we still aligned on like what that is? So you start getting into this
because you're not sure what constraints apply. And so,
exactly.
So it has to be this like mind mappy, organic, like shit show, really, like to get into the process of figuring out what is this thing supposed to look like? And that stuff that like extremely fast. And this is true again. This is true when they're doing stuff solo, like within your own brain. That's also what's happening, right? So if you're just working on your own thing, that's all straight. So what the beginning is this extremely chaotic, naturally chaotic thing, and it has to be because the way that a final system works is a whole bunch of interactive parts that only work as a whole. And you can't design that top to bottom.
Yeah,
all you can do,
full.
you just get in there and you start spreading out until you find all of the pieces and figure out kind of how they all interact and all that kind of stuff. And when you're doing that collaboratively, you can get much better outcomes. But also it's kind of required if you're doing it collaboratively, because not only because you'll get a better whole outcome, but also for everybody to do their relevant jobs, everybody's input in there has to be taken into account. It has to be. And nobody knows yet what's important, because what's important only matters. What's important is dictated by what the actual final thing is. What the final thing is dictated by what would be important, right? So it just has to be a fucking.
You just got to keep talking in circles for
a
while, and then eventually you get there. But if you're trying to do that over email, it's like you're not going to do that.
Well, I do want to talk about the approach we've taken for this jam, though, because like so this is the first time we've done one, and I think it's literally been like 5 years since Seth and I.
Well, no, we did that one where we used Unity. I think in 2022 maybe, or something around there. We made that one where it was like you were like a weird helicopter alien thing, and you were like picking up people, evacuating people from the woods or something.
I don't even remember this.
I think it was like 4 years. I think it was 2021 maybe. That was like 4 years ago or something. It was in any event. It's been years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Because of course, the further you get into sort of like Crashlands 2 being in such a long, like almost in production phase, if that makes sense. Because of all the tools we built, they just felt like we were so close to knowing enough that instead of doing jams typically, and this actually happened with Levelhead too, we would just go work on the game in like a jam-ish context with a very particular goal, but it was just oriented around production. So, it's just been interesting, having that long of a gap between, because we used to do, especially when we started out, of course, sort of the self-training we did was essentially just jamming all the time. Yeah. And it's been fun coming back to it though. This time our approach is just different in terms of like what we're trying to do. And I think that aspect of it is, I think, worth like kind of talking about, like our approach difference from like almost like the olden days, the middle days before we stopped jamming for a bit, and then like what we're trying to do now. Because like at the beginning, what were we trying to do? You know what I mean? Like with these
jams. At the beginning, there's just an open question of like, can we make a game? Like that's like at the very beginning. That was the question we were trying to answer.
Or a game
can we make something playable,
exactly.
in a weekend or whatever? And once the answer became yes, then the goalpost moves, and it's like, okay, can we make like a good game? Like, can we make a fun game in a weekend that actually like gets people excited? And then once the answer is yes, then we start moving the goalpost more. Can we make a game that people could play for 5 hours? In a weekend? And that's when we start figuring out like loops. We make things like Flop Rocket and Freeway Mutant and, things like that. And then the goals posts just start going all over the place, ultimately landing in like when we did our Shenana Jam, we're like, can we just make an MMO in a weekend? Can we do that? And so, we roped in Adam for that one to do all the server side code and stuff. And like, we did it.
Fields of Goop. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like jams were always our way of cultivating our ability to execute.
Yes, on a technical level, almost more so.
On a technical level, yeah. Like just once we have an idea, can we put all the pieces together in a compelling way?
Yeah.
And jams allowed us to develop that skill.
Well,
And then,
it isn't
of course,
just the execute part. It is the design part too, because it's can we in that constraint can we like find the constraints to come up with a design that accomplishes whatever we think our goals are, right? And also execute on that. Of course, execution and design are an iterative loop, right? Or at least they should be. So yeah, it is both of those things, but it was definitely like the focus was always to as quickly as possible get to execution.
Yeah, I think the interesting note though is like all of it had the underlying assumption of essentially the little asterisk of when this game is played, will it be fun? Will it last for 10 hours? Like what? And I think where we moved to in a lot of our kind of discussions in this like post Crashlands 2 launch era, as we're kind of figuring out what to do after we're all done with the next update and everything else, is about trying to move to a higher design level, which is no longer just like once playing it already, is it good? But how do you design something so that it sort of like markets itself basically in a way
it commands people to play it, and that's we've never optimized
people
for
wanting
that.
to play it versus liking playing it, right?
Correct. And
yeah,
they're two different things.
And so when we made Levelhead, I think we've always kind of like thought that we were doing this, right? Of like Levelhead, we were like, okay, like here's a popular genre of thing, which is like the Mario Maker thing. As far as we know, there's no follow-ups to it. Let's see if we can slide in there, But when we designed it, we didn't say like what would really like rope people in and get them to try this, right? We just kind of assumed that like because there was a hole there and people would want this type of game, just by making that type of game,
right?
It would just summon an audience.
Yeah, it's basically the do well, make a good version of a genre game or of a classic game, and that should be enough is kind of the vibe, right?
Yeah. But the thing is like, and we had seen stuff like Stardew Valley, right? Which was like, it's a great game, and it's just a Harvest Moon sort of follow-up, right? There was no Harvest Moon follow-ups, and now there's this one. And so people are like, yes, finally, somebody made this thing that we want. So we had seen it kind of pan out in certain scenarios. But usually it doesn't actually, right? And it didn't for us very, very effectively. And so then with Levelhead going into Crashlands 2, the lessons we kind of looked at is we were like, okay, something about Levelhead didn't like seriously resonate.
Yeah.
Like the people who played it are just playing the fuck out of it. Like we got people with 3,000 hours in that game, right? But again, like we said, with the jam games, it's like, okay, well, we can't just assume that people are going to play it. Like, yeah, we have to make a really good game, but we need to ask questions further upstream. So with Crashlands 2, a lot of that was like the aesthetics. What can we do to make this game much more visually striking and much more inviting to people so that they see and they're like, ooh, right?
Yeah, I think that we were very focused on like when someone sees an image of it, when someone sees a video of it, is it very compelling? And then simultaneously with that was a deeper angle on the gameplay to be like, how do we make it more personal? So it's like, we have our Crashlands 2 loadouts channel where people are sharing how they're playing the game, right? So we pushed a lot. I mean, a lot of the design of Crashlands 2 is all about that, basically, which is like giving people a lot of different ways of approaching the core combat sort of experience of that game, right? And so we did nail it on those two things we're focused on, right? But again, you're still kind of missing the higher level question.
Well, and also we had assumed like, well, it's a sequel to a popular game, right? But there were some things that we missed, I think, which was that like the original game was much more popular on mobile than any other platform. Yeah. And in the past decade, mobile has seen better days. Okay. Yeah, it's not doing too hot in the premium space.
That's why that was the whole point of the Netflix deal we did was like, we wanted to bring it to mobile, but in a format.
We needed a heavy hitter to deliver the game for us.
Yeah, in a format that fits with the modern approach, right? And so that was the whole angle there. And that did work from a business standpoint. We did manage to secure those contracts and stuff initially. And and all that. And so, but it's interesting because again, if you go up a level and it's like, okay, but what about this besides the fact that it is a sequel, right? What about just the core concept of it is the sort of thing that can self-market.
If you're again,
given that
and
most
this is
people
something
haven't played the original, right?
Exactly.
Like what's your pitch to everybody?
Because most people haven't played any particular game, right? Yeah, and so and this is something like I've always hated this idea, but I understand it, which is like the elevator pitch, which is like if you've got basically one sentence to say about your game, what do you say to rope people in? And we never found that sentence with any of our games, really, right? Like our game, and nowadays, something we've learned is that like so much of awareness comes through things like TikTok and YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. And these like people who have even semi-popular channels, they're getting up to 100 emails a day pitching games. And so if you think about like your own email inbox and what it looks like when you get a lot of emails, what do you see? Like you see the sender and you see one sentence. That's it, right? So like it is an elevator pitch. It's you get like maybe 15 words.
Yeah, right.
To somehow get that person to open up your pitch for your game amongst the 99 others that they got that day as they're scrolling through their inbox and just deciding what to try to spend their time on. And like with Crashlands, the Crashlands franchise, it's like, we took all this cool stuff and we like mashed it together. It's an RPG, it's a crafting game, it's an action game, it's got story, and that's all true, but that's just a list of mechanics.
It's objectively a very, very good game, but getting a random person who's never heard of it to attend to it amongst the pile is hard because it's still sort of like, I don't know, but it's still just game shaped. It's like other the shape of other games.
It's a good game, and even if it's a better game than other games, people have to play it to know that.
Yeah.
And if there's not some kind of extremely compelling, initial thing you can say about the game, then oftentimes you won't get that. And like we saw, it's like it was very hard for us to get people to in the U.S. To get people to stream. Like we got people in other countries to talk about the game and stream it and do like write articles and all that stuff. But the U.S. market was like we just kind of like bounced right off of it in a lot of cases on the press and marketing side. And a lot of it comes down to that, like, okay, something about how like we were never able to find the pitch,
if I'm thinking about this trajectory, to me, it's basically like, you can see it in the jams, but it's moving up the ladder of design and competence, right? Where it's like, okay, you start with just the question of, can we make anything that you could call playable, right? That's step one. That's like year one. Step two is, can we make something that is, fun in a couple of hours? Can we do that? And then can we make something that's like fun for a while, for a long time.
Longevity.
Yeah. And then you slowly work your way up into, these more systems heavy games and like Levelhead and Crashlands 2 and stuff. Where basically that rung where we stayed for a long time, building out those technical skills. Can we make something that looks so good that people want to play it when they see it? Like we've figured out all these things. And I think we're arriving at another rung up, which is like, okay, but how do we just from the top shape this thing so that everything about actually getting people to pay attention to it is easier, right? And that's sort of what the jam approach is for us then with the GMTK 25 jam. It's not just like, how can we do something that we've never done before, like on a technical level, which is typically where we're at. Like, let's make an MMO, right?
Ship has sailed. Like we can do whatever, we can execute whatever we decide to. We just need to make better decisions now.
That's kind of, yeah, exactly. So with the GMTK jam, then we're like, okay, let's spend a little more time on the ideation phase, try to come up with something that we think is, that has the chance of actually kind of resonating in just a more interesting way.
Something that seems easy to pitch.
Exactly. Easy to pitch. Yeah. And so the process was, it was different than what we usually do, which is basically within typically within about 45 minutes or so, we're like, fuck it, send it. And then we just do whatever we came up with, and this time it's probably, I don't know, it's like maybe 3 hours or so. Kind of noodling or something like that.
A
couple hours.
Which normally in a jam, we are well past the prototyping stage at the 3 hour mark. It's like, we'll spend 15 minutes tops being like, what's this game? All right, you're going to be this, you're going to do this, you're going to jump like that. Okay, yep, got it. And then we just start building, right?
Well, and what
so this time we're like, let's try to find something.
Anything fun. And so we would instantly get into that part of like,
So we just make anything.
yeah. So the idea didn't matter. But the idea is like, it's fun once you experience it. Right. And that's the gulf is, does somebody want to try to experience it in the first place versus once they do they have a really good time? And we've gotten better and better and better at ensuring that people have a really good time once they get in there. Right. And that the quality keeps getting higher and higher and higher across all the various dimensions. Right?
Yeah, and actually, this actually makes me think of. I feel like we've had a similar kind of angle as like Behemoth, where like because they were making games before we were.
Oh yeah,
and they had Battle Block Theater and stuff like that. And their games, like if you think about like, what's the pitch for their games, there kind of isn't one. Yeah, they're just like hilarious. Yeah. They're just hilarious games. Yep. And they're super fun and they're mechanically tight and they have a certain like aesthetic to them that makes them identifiable, you know? And 15 years ago, that was all you needed. Yep. Like you make that, you put that up on Steam, you're fucking good. Right. And then I remember because like they released Pit People. Yeah. Which was their best game in terms of like hitting all those different marks.
It's great. It's so fucking weird.
And it just didn't really resonate. Like it didn't.
I think it picked up. I think it did, but not
at a level that you would think.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, exactly. Given the execution, I think is what you're talking about. It's like it's essentially saying it's their best game, but we're like, I don't know, put it.
But I think it worked for people who were already Bethesda or not Behemoth fans.
Behemoth, right?
Yes.
And that's
a lot, you know.
Yeah, they're a lot because of Castle Crashers and their other titles, right? So that because I know for me when Pit People came out, I was excited first because I heard a new Behemoth game was coming out.
Yes,
and I liked them as a studio, right? And then that made it so that when I saw this thing called Pit People, I was like, the fuck? I don't know. Like nothing about that actually resonated with me in the slightest. The title didn't catch nothing. Nothing did. Yep. But it was Behemoth. They make funny stuff, and I loved their block. What's the block?
Battle Block Theater.
Battle Block Theater. Yeah, Battle Block Theater. Fucking love that game, but mostly like I love their humor and so I knew the trailers for this thing were going to be good. And they did not disappoint. They were insane. And I had such a good time watching the trailers that I still, in the end, I was like, I don't know what this game is. I don't even think that I would like playing it. Right. But I'm so compelled by the absurdity of it that I bought it. I played it for, I don't know, probably 4 hours or something, like not that much. And everything about what my experience was, despite not liking the game actually, was still so gleeful and fun. Like I got everything I wanted out of the experience.
Well, the thing is, it was a very different type of game than something like Battle Block Theater or Castle Crashers.
Very different.
Castle Crashers.
But it had the same...
Which again, it's kind of the same kind of like thing that we have been doing, which is like, just hard pay. Like first we make like a top-down roguelike quadrupus rampage, then we make like this open world crafting game, then we make a platformer, you know? And like we're bringing the aesthetic and the vibe through. But we're just kind of going in hard different directions. And then like the types of games that we make, we aren't focused on the hook. You know, we aren't focused on the elevator pitch. We're just focused on delivering.
And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about that joke about programmers, right? Where it's like a programmer would rather program for, 3 weeks than have a meeting for 3 hours or whatever. And I think a lot of a lot of the problems, it comes into the space, right? Which is like, it is in many ways, it's so much easier to immediately start working out the granular details of just something than it is to stay on a higher level and really keep on asking those questions about like, is this doing enough to...
It's more fun to build the thing than it is to just talk in circles for 3 hours, throwing ideas away.
Yes. Well, especially about the part that is the least fun, which is to answer the question, like, is this something that we think people would pay attention to, right? That's not a fun piece of game design, right? Or making anything.
I think it's because you cannot know, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Well, it's uncomfortable too, even outside of that, you got to check your ego.
Yeah. You just want to make something that because like as a game designer developer, you want to make a game that is really good to play and well designed and really good, all this kind of stuff, right? Yes. The part where people have to want to play it in the first place, that's the least interesting part of the whole exercise.
But it's not just that it's uninteresting. It's that it hurts your ego.
Yeah.
To be constantly asking the question of like, but why would anybody give a shit about this thing that I'm about to make? Right. And you have to keep assuming nobody cares. Okay. Here, like, so, and as we were talking through our ideas for this jam, we'd be like, okay, this sounds like we can make some pretty fun. I'm like, but who gives a fuck? Like this doesn't
It doesn't matter if it's
It
fun
doesn't
and good
strike a
if
chord at all.
nobody would give it a chance. If nobody would look at it.
And so we basically had to just keep going until we found ourselves cracking ourselves up with a concept that was something kind of like familiar to people, which was at some point our conversation landed on, hey, remember that time, like it was like 6 months ago, where the whole internet was debating about like how many dudes it would take to beat up a gorilla?
Which I don't remember that happening, but I remember an adjacent thing, which was a few years ago. Somebody put out a survey where they'd asked men and women to say if they thought they could defeat any of a given list of animals in like hand-to-hand combat.
Hand-to-hand combat. Can you take on a dog?
Yeah, it's just it starts at like a mouse or rat or whatever and goes all the way down to gorilla and like the tigers and shit, right? And this was like spread around the internet like wildfire because basically like the degree of delusion it showed among men. Think like the sheer proportion of men who thought, I personally as a person with my fists could fight a gorilla. It was like 20%. It was something insane. And a bear was also like 15 or 20%. Like the number was way too high. It like just insane. And so that has cracked me up forever since I saw it.
And you see these debates basically they come up every so often.
It's also how many toddlers could one man fight and like this kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, would you rather fight like 100 ducks or one horse-sized duck or whatever?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Stupid, like that stuff, right? So yeah, we just started chuckling about that, and then mixed it in with the Monster Rancher genre.
Monster Rancher.
Yeah. So we're like, well, what's the genre what's a game that we really liked when we were growing up or whatever else that we haven't seen a kind of a equivalent to in a while. And so we're, sorting through some stuff and that one came up. We're like, oh, it's got a good structure to it. And then we tried wrapping it in a couple other concepts and similar to what Adam said, they're saying, none of them were, it was like, who gives a fuck about ranching those things? And then we're like, oh, well, if the whole game is just trying to answer this question, like how many dudes does it take to defeat a gorilla?
Yeah.
I think we could do something with that. Like it sounds hilarious if what you're doing is running a dude ranch.
Yeah, you got a dude ranch.
Dudes,
yeah. But then
you got to see if they can fight a gorilla, Yeah.
And then now another pitch is really fun and compelling, but this also brings us right next or instantly next to this whole conflict between like the quality of a joke and the compellingness of it, right? And also like the context required. So because this game should be called, in my opinion, in a vacuum, should be called Dude Ranch, right? Because that's such a good pun. It's fucking
or
hilarious.
Dude Rancher.
Or Dude
like
Rancher.
Monster Rancher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either way, like so good, right? Except that I'm just like thinking if on Steam I just saw a game called Dude Ranch, no. If I saw a game called Dude Rancher, now maybe. Like there's a good maybe there, right?
I'm ranching dudes.
Yeah, that's because now I'm like, what is this, right? But if I saw a game called How many dudes with a question mark, right?
How many dudes?
I'd be like, how many dudes? What is this? Like how
many dudes does it take?
Yeah, it's gonna be much more, even though that's the least interesting joke.
It's the game title equivalent of putting one of those fucking dumb red circles on a YouTube thumbnail.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think the reality is that's from a conceptual level, that's actually what you're trying to hit. Is like,
exactly.
Is that kind
of, you want people to be like,
now you have to decide, like,
and they click on it, right?
Yeah, but I think to me, it's like the fact that more important than almost anything is the title of the game, right? Because that's the elevator pitch. And as far as like what people will actually get to see most of the time, because like if you're on Steam, you're not seeing the short description throughout the store. Yep. All you're seeing is the
slug and
the title, and then that piece of art. Because we're thinking things like Cult of the Lamb, right? If it was like if you saw like Cult of the Lamb, compelling already, because I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But it has like a vibe that doesn't sound like what it is at all. Yeah, and that vibe like initially isn't that interesting, actually.
Yeah, if it had like your typical horror slug, with it, then you'd be like, okay, I know what that is, whatever. But it has this cute generic fucking lamb, and you're like, what? You got a question?
What is this? Right? Yeah, and so trying to set up that kind of contrast, like, because they could have called that game anything. They could have had a different art style. They could have leaned more into like less cartoony horror. Like there's all these kinds of things that could have happened in combination, right? Where because of that combination of the surprise created, making you want to know what's going on, right? Of the title combined with that art, that's all you need. Like I actually I don't read the short descriptions of games personally.
No.
I see their slug and I'm like, and I see the
your
art.
eyes go right past it to the review score.
Yeah, I look at the review score and then I watch some of the videos. Like that's how I look at games.
Yeah. So we basically were trying to, we just zoomed out and we're like, okay, we've done this we've done enough of these. We know we can execute. You know, we're not younglings anymore who don't know what the fuck we're doing. Like we can execute on any concept we decide to do. And we do need to sharpen our skills on just which concept we pick to do and like the exploration of that. So that was the approach for the jam. We're making the game How Many Dudes? And it's come along pretty fucking good. It's pretty silly. And I'm really curious to see, of course, we have
right now we just have we have regular gorillas, silverback gorillas, rats, and then rodents of unusual size. Yeah. You know, and so far it looks like it takes probably about 8 dudes to take on a silverback. That's what it's looking like.
Our numbers
for simulation.
Our horse-sized duck and a duck-sized horse probably also.
Yeah, we need a duck-sized horse and a horse-sized duck.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, because this is something else that we kind of like have been thinking about is that like all of our games are just so out there. Like we have Quadrupus Rampage, which is nothing in that game is real. Like you're playing as a fictional creature in a fictional universe, and
if you want to talk to a friend about it, you have to explain everything. You know what I mean?
There's nothing related.
Quadrupus Rampage is like real adjacent enough because like because you're just slapping fish, which you can accurately say, right? And the fish it's like they look like hammerhead sharks and anglerfish and stuff, right? So I think that one's like that was adjacent enough that it does work. Yeah,
yeah. But the point being, like with Levelhead, with Crashlands, like we're making a lot of our stuff is making fun of corporate culture and there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek kind of parody and humor and stuff in there. But the game's core concept is not something that's like directly tapped into something in the cultural consciousness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not necessarily provoking or asking an interesting question that then you're like, I want to answer that by playing the game, right? Or like, yeah, poking on something that people can easily talk about. And so then there's even something we're talking about when we're trying to figure out which creatures to make. Because of course we could make, I don't know, aliens. You can make whatever you want in a game like this. How many dudes does it take to kill an alien? But I think the important thing is when you're talking to someone else, if you played it, that again, you can understand what the fuck you guys are talking about.
And the thing is, like, maybe we will have 5-year-olds that you can fight in this game. I don't know.
Well, but I think even outside of like the real versus not real, that kind of stuff, what matters more is actually it's the familiarity isn't about real or not real, right? It's about, because like in this case, this is a reference to a particular collection of memes that exist out in the world, right? Which is the frequently asked joke, as you described, of like, how many people would it take to fight X or vice versa, right?
But there's a reason those memes are popular, right? It's because it asks a question that as soon as
forces
you ask
a debate.
You're like, how many would it take?
Well, it's very funny because it's not like the idea that like, a dragon can kill a lot of dudes and people,
because that's not real.
Well, it's not even not real. It's not interesting, right?
Yeah.
But things that have like some known relationship to each other that is a little less. And like that can still be funny, like in another context. Like if the context then.
Now, did you guys see John Mulaney actually did this? John Mulaney hired like 3 high school students to fight him.
Did he win?
To see if he could beat them. No, I don't think he did.
I mean, high school students are just physically.
Yeah. They were probably like, I think it was like 14-year-olds or something like that.
So like young. Still
yeah,
though.
So he had a brawl with like several children to see if he could win. Which, ethical concerns aside, is hilarious.
So yeah, we're seeking to answer this question. That's the question we have.
Yeah.
How many dudes does it take to defeat what insert funny thing here? And
I think how many dudes would it take to beat 3 ducks, a giraffe, and a goose? Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and we seek to find the answer through our simulation powers. So. So then the idea is like you'll have your dude ranch. You hire dudes. They're hanging out at the ranch. We haven't yet landed on like, are you training these dudes like Monster Rancher style, or do you just have a lot of dudes and they just come as they are, and then they just get pummeled to death eventually, and then you got to get fresh dudes for the war machine.
It is focused. There's room for so many fun jokes in there, about like. It's because it's a dude ranch, right? And so, like,
well, the dudes have different stats, so we can have like different types of dudes, and we can also, like I want to get like a manosphere dude who has like no confidence stat and is also weak and just runs away all the time, and it's like, it's not a very good dude to have on your team, but you could probably get him for cheap. Hey, so just throw him in there.
Did you guys see that whole I don't know who that guy is. He's on various social media, does like little skits. But the whole like alpha males eat spiders thing. Did you see it? Because he was talking about how like he's like an alpha male like only eats other dangerous animals. He's like what's the most dangerous animal pound for pound? Spiders, right? And so he just
pound for pound.
Yeah, has this long thing about how he's like, I eat
checks out
3,000, 4,000 spiders per day, right? And it's just this whole thing is about eating spiders, and that would be a good character, like kind of dude to have. Would be like
the alpha male
dude who just eats spiders, right? Like and you have, if you wanted to go all the way into, like, this is a jam game, so it can't be that big, right? But if you wanted to go all the way into the rancher part, then you've got dude husbandry, which is fucking perfect.
Yeah, we were talking about how if you got two dudes that have really good stats and you want to like get a fresh dude,
you mate your dudes, get a new dude.
Yep.
Yeah, then you just like you send them up to Brokeback Mountain. You send them up somewhere in the mountains.
Yep.
They're gone for a week. They come back. You got a fresh dude. Yeah, they come back with a little fresh baby dude. That's where dudes come from.
It's just a baby dude. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like all this stuff is relatable, and it kind of like lets us like poke fun at things or make jokes about things without having to build up an entire goddamn universe around it before we can make the jokes, because it's in our universe. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, the idea that the joke exists in the context that people already exist in, rather than having to build up the context in which we then tell the joke.
Exactly.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. The thing is, there's like 30,000 participants in the GMTK Jam. So we'll see. I don't even know. Okay, we don't know if it's going to work.
It's a good test of the idea. Can we?
I think it was a fun exercise to try a different approach in terms of the, deciding what to build. And I feel like we did a pretty good job with it. So we'll see what the outcome is,
But I mean, it's the same as anything else though, right? As in like, it's the same as the problem in general, which is the approach could be really good, but it could just turn out that people don't care in this moment about how many dudes it takes to fight things, right? Or the combination of what ends up being like the art style plus the specific title we go with rather than some other title, that doesn't quite hit people the way that we think that it would, right? It still ultimately is a gamble about how it all shakes out.
Whatever happens, it'll be playable on itch because we're going to upload it. What's our itch? It's like bscotch.itch.
bscotch.itch.io. Pretty sure.
I think.
Yep. And we'll put a link to it. We'll put a link to it in the show notes because it will be done by Wednesday.
So whatever comes out of this thing, and also like we're not going super hard on this jam in the sense that we're just doing our regular work days, and then we'll do we're not going to work on it all day on Saturday. We'll just
the jam's over on Sunday, like 1 p.m.
The jam's over on Sunday. It's a 4-day jam, but we're not going like 4 days straight on the thing. We're going at a good pace.
I'd take my kids to a block party this afternoon.
Yeah, Sam's a dad. He's got 2 babies.
We're podcasting right now.
Wow. Yeah, like we're just squeezing it in the margins, but yeah, I mean, so far it's
been fun to work on.
Getting to a point where even though we don't have that much, there's a button we have that's just called chaos mode for testing, which is just like, it just basically summons a random combination of dudes and animals, and then they just fight to the death, right? It's on their own. Like, you're not doing anything. They just beat the shit out of each other. And it's weirdly compelling to like, you hit that button and then you see like the ring of dudes surrounding the different combination of animals. And
actually,
just like,
which one? If you wanted to leave the game more there in terms of like scope because of time, this is a great gambling premise where if like you just see the lineup of like what's going to happen, and then you just place a bet on whether it's.
You're like, okay, I think these gorillas are going to beat the shit out of these 16 dudes for sure.
So then you bet on the animals or the dudes and just.
That's a good point. It's a good way to shorten.
Yeah.
So there's a gambling and simulation game, which are 2 very
people love
successful
gambling.
categories.
They just love it.
Hot.
Or maybe you make the simulation game and then you can bet on the outcome of each match to get like bonus coins or something like that. So
double down on your dudes.
Because something that I think like a lot of these gambling things do. I can't remember what the term is. I think it starts with a P, parlay or something like that, which is like if you're betting on a sports game of some kind, then you can not just bet about like who's going to win. You can also make your own custom bet where you'll be like, I think this player is going to score 8 3-pointers. Or something
you can bet on anything. You can get all granular. You can be like,
so you can like, you invent your own bet. And because there's so many statistics, behind the scenes of like all these different things going on, they will come up with odds for you for that bet, and then you place it. And the thing is, like, people lose those bets almost every single time, you know, but it's like a lottery ticket where, like, if it pays off, then it's like, you know, 100 to 1 or something like that. Right. And so like that mechanic in these like sports betting apps is the thing that is like making them just go absolutely fucking crazy, because everybody thinks they're clever, and they come up with all these wagers. It's like we could add a parlay mechanic into the. We could do a lot with this thing. Yeah. You know? It's just dudes fighting gorillas.
Right? Is that question of like, okay, so now let's say you've got the title that draws people in, the pitch draws people in. They're looking at the art. They're like, okay, I'm now I want to actually like get in here and play this thing, right? If you're also trying to then make it so that people who are playing it for other people, so streamers and the like, right, have something compelling to show people, because that's that next question is like, not only is it fun to play, is it fun to watch, right? And
it's fun to watch.
Is it fun?
Actually,
for
this game is just about
playing
watching. Like, it's about watching dudes fighting animals, because you're not controlling the dudes or the animals. You're just throwing them in
reaction. So putting it into that whole like saying like, oh, let's treat this like a sport, like conceptually, right? And like, what's fun about people watching sports? It's like, oh, you got the commentator, you got people placing bets, you got all this other stuff around it. Then it's like you could go down that path potentially, right? Mm-hmm. Or you could go down the Monster Ranger path, but that where you like are managing your dude ranch. But then the question is how is that fun to watch, right? Versus just fun to do. And trying to make, so that question of like, how do you make it top down about the people wanting to play the game in the first place, wanting to share the thing as they start playing it, and then being able to successfully do that, so that because people want to play, or people who love Crashlands 2 want to share it with their friends, 100%. But there's not a good way to do that because it's not fun to watch other people play.
Again, it takes a lot of context building to like kind of know, and in a lot of ways, it's kind of like watching Rocket League on Twitch versus watching League of Legends on Twitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, if you watch Rocket League, it's you know immediately like, oh, they're trying to hit the ball in the goal, because
you can tell what's happening.
Because you're a human on Earth and you can figure out how this works.
Yeah, right? Even though it's a slightly ridiculous bend on the concept, right? It's like the same idea. It's just like you take soccer, but you just make it crazy. And
even like StarCraft, like I don't know exactly what's happening when I watch like a professional StarCraft game, you know, but everything like that is happening is like units are moving around and fighting each other. Like
it's like watching a war. Clear. You can kind of see, and it's very obvious when two groups of units come at each other, and like you can see them shooting the fuck out of each other. And
there's a lot of higher level stuff going on that the more you know, the more interesting that becomes. But at base, you can instantly understand what's happening. Like Rocket League, doesn't
much
have
in the same way that like
stuff, but.
Yeah. But in the same way that like in a basketball game, it's like there's 10 people on the court, and like some of them are running in like they're all running in different directions and for different reasons, and there's a team strategy, and you can kind of get some insights into those higher level things. But at the end of the day, like it's still just exciting to just watch the ball. Like what is the ball doing, and who's carrying it, and what are they doing, and who are they passing it to? And that's where like the post game analysis is always like, wow, why did that happen? Why did this person do this? What were they trying to do? But you don't need to know any of that shit to watch it. But if you're watching like League of Legends or like World of Warcraft Arena PvP, which is the worst thing to watch, I think, in the world of esports, where each character has over 50 different abilities with cooldowns that they could use at any given time. And it's like you'll hear the commentators be like, oh my God, what a play. And you're looking at the screen and you're like,
Where?
What? What do you mean?
Yep. Well, it's also it's the fact that in a game like that too, it's like because the fact that there's so many parts of the map and you can only see a little subset at a time too, right? That's a big part of it. Is of course because like something happened, you're like, okay, where and what and why does that matter? And all of those things require so much context.
Yeah, and I will say, like, this isn't to knock on League of Legends because, like, it is one of the most
very successful
things on Twitch, but it's also one of the most played games. Like, and so what I'm saying is, if you don't play League of Legends, you can't watch League of Legends. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And so if you're like, I want people to watch my game on Twitch, I'm going to make a game that has that level of complexity as League of Legends. It's like, well, you're going to need you're going to need 500 million players before it becomes popular to watch, right? So you got to understand your station. Like, what lane are you in right now? And you got to figure out how to operate in that lane. And we don't have 500 million.
That brings us back to the interesting. How many people are? It's the whole idea to go like just what are people seeing when they're trying to make that decision? And so like going back to that inbox point for like every streamer in the universe gets 1,000 emails a day or whatever, right? If they see one of the senders is Devolver Digital, right? Like they're going to go look at it, right? It's so when you see one of these other entities doing something, that doesn't tell you anything.
The same rules don't apply to you and them.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like a new Blizzard game comes out. It's a new IP.
10 million people
will play it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every article will be about that game, even though it's like Overwatch was such an interesting case because like I remember seeing it and being like, I don't get it. Like, what are they doing? And in the sense that it seems like Team Fortress.
Yeah, it looked fun.
It seems like Team Fortress. It's like Blizzard Team Fortress, right?
Honestly, that was the pitch, and
that was the pitch, and that was good enough.
Yeah, it worked. Great.
And so I never ended up playing it, but it just has like an inbuilt delivery mechanism through Battle.net, and the fact that it's a Blizzard game. And
the reality is, once you get to a certain scale, the rules shift, right?
The rules change, yeah.
But we're not.
And like if you're an indie, if you're getting started, if you're just trying to like get noticed, you gotta think about those rules. And I think we're trying to get into the mode of understanding those rules better and trying to operate within them. Which isn't to say like, sure, this weird like dude ranching how many dudes game. I don't know if that's the game, but like we got to just keep taking swings at it, you know? Yeah.
Well, that's part of the idea too, is accepting the idea that like stuff is literally hit or miss when it comes to the entertainment industry, right? And so the strategy makes sense. Kind of like the strategy definitely makes sense of being like,
it doesn't mean you're going to be right every time.
Yeah, and you're still going to be wrong probably more often than you're right.
Most of the time, yeah. So anyway, so we're super excited about it. Well, like Sam's saying, we'll put the link in the show notes if anybody wants to play How Many Dudes, which we think is going to be the title.
Yep.
And it's an open question as to whether or not we, pick it up again and keep going with it later on to turn it into something. We'll kind of see what it turns into now and what the response is. But in any case, it's going to be fun to work on, and I hope everybody enjoys playing it. And that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa Costa, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, the App Store, and Google Play and pick up Crashlands 2, give it a review. All those things help the game get more visibility and notice. And plus, we have a couple of other games out there, too, that we wouldn't mind if you picked up and played. We'd appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.